Oh, hey, we are live. What's up, everybody? Two Bros Wrestling Show coming at you live and through the magic that is professional wrestling. Kevin, what's happening, brother?
All kinds of things happening, Doug, in
All
the
the things.
news and then, on our televisions. The television part is what we'll be talking about in our main event as we look at Crown Jewel, our review of Crown Jewel. But the news, the comings, the goings, the injuries, oh my.
Right. Oh,
Opening bell time. Yeah, as I said, just a lot of news, comings and goings. We're going to start, though, by talking about uh, major updates with the developmental program. You may have heard about what happened on Friday. If you have not heard what happened on Friday, WWE parted ways with a number of people in their developmental program on Friday. That list
yeah.
included talents such as Wesley, who
Mhm.
is just amazing. Um, Stevie Turner, who is the current GM on Evolve, and then some names that are a little less surprising with Draco Knox, Jamar Hampton, Jim Talla, Hayes Jamison, Summer Sorrell, and Braden BJ Ray. Um, so that's a long list, a few of which folks have probably not heard of because they were not featured often on TV. But then some names, again, Wes and Stevie are the two that are most shocking from that list. And that was Friday. But earlier in the week, Kylie Ray had already announced that she was no longer part of the ID program. Smiley Kylie's situation has a bit of a twist, though, as her contract was not being renewed while she was out on maternity leave, which is not the best look for WWE. Kylie was the inaugural WWE Women's ID champion, but vacated that title late last month when she announced she was pregnant. No word on when or even if a new champion will be crowned. Before I leave WWID, though, one more WWID departure, one that I absolutely hated to hear. And this one is definitely different. And this one was their own choice and not WWE letting them go. But the real deal Zeta Steel, the very first athlete that WWE signed to their independent developmental or ID program, announced she had decided not to renew her ID contract in order to pursue other opportunities. Doug, this is starting to sound familiar. We're hearing a lot more
Mhm.
of this we've reported on over the last few weeks, just people choosing not to be part of the WWE, which is, a little different. But the uber talented Steel had been a highlight of the weekly WWE Evolve program on Tubi. She turns 22 tomorrow, so that young age, there's still plenty of time to find her way in this business. Hopefully, she finds another path to being on our TV screens. She certainly has everything it takes to be a big star in the wrestling business. She just may be choosing a different path forward. I have a feeling, Doug, from what we've been reporting the last few weeks with people choosing to leave at the very low end of the WWE totem pole, there's not a lot of money in those contracts.
There's not a lot of money, and I think you can make, especially if you've had a little bit of time in WWE, you can take that to the Indies then, and make a decent living. Because you have that on the posters then, hey, of WWE, formerly known
Yeah.
as,
Yep. Have you ever seen Zeta Steel?
I don't think I
No.
have.
I mean, she is something else. I first saw her in MLW, what felt like a couple of years ago. If she's only 22 tomorrow, she had to be a teenager when she was on there.
Right.
So
Yeah, yeah.
I can't imagine she's not going to find her way into AEW or some other place, maybe a little more lucrative, because she definitely has everything that it takes. They've been building a lot of the Evolve program around her and the faction she's involved in. So her departure, actually, I'm sure is hurting WWE, but got to put out the money, guys. Come on.
Yeah.
You're the big
Yeah. Pay
dogs.
them what
Don't
they're
be
worth.
cheap.
Right.
We're going to continue to talk comings and goings here with our main event topic, as I mentioned up top, about Crown Jewel Perth. It's only fitting we have a story about Australian Bronson Reed. Word is he agreed to a long-term contract with WWE, so good for Bronson. Obviously, He's in the midst of the highest profile push of his career. This validates
Hmm.
the WWE intends to make him a part of their future plans. No word on how long the extension is for, but it wasn't that long ago, like summer of 2021, to be precise, that Reed was let go from WWE during his first stint with the company, and here he is. Quite a turnaround. That's a good
Oh
story.
yeah, good story. Good for him. Big things.
Moving
Big things in the big guy's future.
for the big thick boy.
Yeah.
Um, Moving on to maybe not as good a story, and it's just the follow up on Andrade being let go by WWE and reappearing in AEW. Um, Fightful Select is reporting that
He's been
Tony.
let go from AEW, right now he's back in WWE. Is that it?
Would it surprise you with the way that things have gone
No.
for Andrade? No, what is being reported is apparently Tony Khan and AEW already had creative plans for Andrade even before he
Mhm.
re-signed with the company, which is
Mhm.
interesting development. It's apparent, obviously from his attack on Kenny Omega, that those plans look to have Andrade near the top of the card for this return program. One side effect of this news is the Omega, like Kyle Fletcher match that looked like AW was building to has been put on the back burner for now. The pivot was
Ooh.
both because of Andrade's return and because Kenny is still not 100% health wise. And AEW knows that the first Omega Fletcher match in this feud is going to have very high expectations. They want to be sure
Mhm.
Kenny is physically able to live up to those. More news in the world of talent relations. And you made the joke about Andrade. Is he going? Is he rehired? When I say comings and goings are the through line to the news this week, this story has
Mhm.
both the coming and going. And what a wild and weird week it was for Santos Escobar. Have you been following this?
No, no, no. What's going on here?
So the WWE superstar was dropped from the roster and was a free agent on Tuesday after 5 years with the company. The report was that he let his contract expire despite the fact that WWE was wanting to re-sign him. It was a
Okay.
familiar story after all that we've been talking about with Jasmine Nix and no feed, like just choosing not to re-sign. Santos even had his profile moved by WWE to their alumni section of the website. However, 24 hours later, PW Insider was the first to report that Escobar had indeed re-signed with WWE.
Uh-huh.
The report from Mike Johnson also noted that WWE had listened to Escobar's creative concerns for his character and then delivered him a new contract at a higher rate than what was previously being extended to him. So,
Okay. Good for him.
exactly. Congrats to the very talented Escobar for his not just in-ring acumen, but apparently his negotiation
Good
acumen
for
as
him.
well. Yeah, I thought that was a different twist on the
Mhm.
story, but yeah, he was gone. He's back. AW announcer and ECW legend Taz, though, is about to be gone. He is going to be taking some time away.
No.
Yeah, right after Title Tuesday edition of Dynamite we had this week, Taz announced that he is going to soon be undergoing a total shoulder replacement and will be away from
Mm.
AEW for, quote, some time, as he put it. So best wishes for a quick recovery to the human suplex machine and get back soon.
That sounds terribly painful.
Yeah. And unfortunately, we have one more exit to discuss here, Doug, and it's a member of the bloodline leaving WWE.
Yes. Yes, it is. I was aware of this.
Yeah, don't worry for anyone else who wasn't aware. It's not any of the ones you may be worried about. Lance Anoa'i has announced that his WWE time is done, even though he never made it to WWE television. Lance is a member of the Anoa'i family that also contains that's the branch that has the Usos and Roman in it. But Lance signed with WWE way back in like 2023 and went to the Performance Center and almost immediately suffered an injury after he signed. Pretty much just typified the bad luck of his reign, and now is gone from the company and is back on the Indies. So never say never. Maybe he finds his way back, but yeah, we all kept wondering when is he going to,
Right.
debut? Not
Yeah, but
anytime soon.
he can hit the Indies with, formerly of WWE and
Yeah.
of the Anoa'i family, and bring in
Roman's my
bring in the big
cousin.
bucks. Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Um, Moving from exits to injuries, Kota Ibushi was injured during this week's Collision taping, and if you watch last night's show, you will see that AEW decided to air the injury, even though it was a tape show. That was sustained during the match that Kota had with Josh Alexander. The two men were on the top rope, and when Alexander tried to push to put Ibushi up on his shoulders for a fireman's carry, both men lost their footing, with Ibushi falling awkwardly to the floor. He didn't get up. The ref made the 10 count. Reports are that Ibushi has suffered a broken femur. So
Right.
bad news, obviously, for fans of Kota Ibushi, and for Kota himself. Again, get well soon. And
Yes.
then more injury news. NXT Women's Champ Jacy Jayne may have sustained an injury over the weekend at a house show. NXT has yet to confirm the injury, but multiple reports are saying it could be a possible quadricep injury based on the way she was favoring her leg as she was helped to the back. The injury occurred during a tag team match in Columbus that pitted Jayne and her Fatal Influence stablemate Fallon Henley against the team of Sol Ruca and Zarya. And yes, Doug, I was at the show. Let me see if I can. Going to share an image here. And it's funny because I did not know at the time that, what necessarily was going on. But since this is, are you seeing my screen, Doug?
Yep. Oh.
So, yes, I was front row and just snapped this and did not realize at the time that it was perhaps not a work. But then I can confirm what the other reports have been saying is that what I witnessed was that Jayne tagged out and Henley came in to take the rest of the match and take the Soul Snatcher from Sol Ruca and the pin. But Jacy, after the tag, rolled immediately to the outside where she stayed on the mat. And as soon as the match was over, which was very quickly after her exit from the ring, the referee made a beeline to her, gave the X sign, which is typically what we see when there is a legitimate injury. And then the emergency personnel there that you see came to check on her. She stayed down for a very long time, but then was helped up and did walk off under her own power. So again, no confirmation yet from NXT or WWE officials, but it did not look good. But best of luck to Jacy that it's not something serious, that she maybe just tweaked something and avoided a more lengthy time off. Yeah. Weird thing to witness, to actually see the X sign throw up. And of course, these days you're skeptical of everything because fans know what that means. And it's like, is this part of the show? But then again, it's a house show. They're not recording this. They're not shooting an angle. So, and I can just tell from the being so close, the way she was talking to medical personnel, she was practically in tears. So she had hurt something pretty bad, which was terrible to see. Did receive a Jacy Jayne chant, even though she's the heel. But, wrestling fans kind of, we're not known for being a sensitive lot, but I guess we can be when it calls for it. Finally, tonight in our opening bell, we've all been enjoying this John Cena farewell year, and now as it nears its end, 4 more dates, we know who the final opponent is going to be. So congrats to the Ring General Gunther for being selected as John Cena's last match. Not officially announced yet, but that is what the match has reported going to be. It'll take place in Washington, D.C., airing exclusively on Peacock on December 13th as part of Saturday Night's main event. Obviously, this is a big compliment to Gunther and a guarantee that Cena's final match will feature the highest work rate possible.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
I do think that that's not only just a well-earned acknowledgement for Gunther. I mean, that's kind of like being handed a title or something. You get Cena's last match. Yeah, that's quite the compliment. We're going to talk John Cena here in a minute because he is a big part of Crown Jewel Perth, which is our main event for tonight. exclusively on Netflix internationally and ESPN now if you are domestically inclined to be watching the pay-per-views. If you didn't watch the pay-per-view, Doug and I, as always, we're going to give you a spoiler-free version at first and then get into it. Doug, last week on this very program, we said that on paper it didn't look like, because of the low stakes of crown jewel championships and the like, that there probably wasn't going to be any significant storyline advancement or any shocking changes. But on paper, the matches themselves looked like they were going to be strong. I think my review overall, without spoilers, is I think we called it right last week, because to me that's exactly what happened. You probably could guess some of the things that are going to happen, but daggone, the action in the ring was pretty good. I'd have to recommend this as a thumbs up for me.
Absolutely. Thumbs up for me as well. This was good stuff. Good stuff. Fun stuff too. Fun stuff.
Did it exceed your expectations a little bit? Because I have to be honest that because of it being a crown jewel, maybe my expectations were low and were easy to exceed, but I thought it even over delivered what I was anticipating.
So I've got to say, for a crown jewel, maybe it was because it just wasn't in Saudi that that had some of the stink off of it, for me anyway. Um, but this was much better than I expected. There were some clumsy parts to it. There were some, one match just didn't have the chemistry I expected, but overall, amazing, top to bottom.
Yeah, same here. So 2 thumbs up from the two bros. Definitely nothing that I would even suggest skipping. There's some things better than others, but and then some things that are really better than others. So why don't we just go ahead and get to it?
Let's go.
I got the handwritten notes. We start. Okay. First, let me just talk presentation. Right, Crown Jewel, as you said, it's always a Saudi event. This is the first time a Crown Jewel was held outside of Saudi Arabia. I do think it was to the benefit of the event itself. That Australian crowd is always hot. They brought it all night long. They stayed engaged with everything. They elevated everything by their reactions. Wade Barrett was there in Perth, calling from ringside. His partner, Michael Cole, apparently was at the Great Barrier Reef, calling from underwater, I assume. Did you have the same problems with Michael Cole sounding underwater? Was it my feed only?
Maybe so. I did not notice that.
If you had the same thing, please drop in the comments, because at first I thought, okay, they'll clear this up. It was in the first match, and it just continued the entire night. Michael Cole sounded like he was from broadcasting for the 1970s or something, like the old transistor radios thing on a broadcast.
I did not notice this at all on my wow.
Could be just me, so let us know if you experienced anything similar. Roman, pulls out the instant pops by cricket bats, rugby balls. A sure way to combat any possibility, I guess, that Bronson gets cheered in his home country is your tribal chief going full Australian with the sports gear.
Full Australian, and then saying, "You want tables? Acknowledge me."
I loved every It's if there were any worries that that the fans would go for the home guy, the hometown, or at least the home country guy, they did not need to worry, because this was firmly Roman's crowd. They acknowledged him, and he did get the tables, which was also great, because then Bronson gets the heel heat by making sure those tables did not get used. At least at that point in time.
Right.
We got OTC chants. We had "This is awesome" chants. Even though, what I have here, it was kind of an even match, which again, Roman has really been very giving to Bronson Reed in both the beatdown that he took back in Paris, and now in this match. He just gave a lot to make. Honestly, we mentioned at the top of the show in the news segment, Bronson getting a contract. Bronson's earning a contract. He's looking like $1 million, and Roman Reigns has a lot to do with that. Just how generous he's been in this program. But the match did take a turn from being an even Steven match once Roman got taken off guard as he ran around the ring by Braun Breaker, coming out of nowhere.
Yes. Yes. He makes it look so easy too. It's
Yes,
got to be annoying to people in the back because it looks just so easy when he just flies through the air. He just launches like he's being shot out of a cannon.
it makes me frightened like at any given moment because he's so sudden. Like I'm
Right?
worried he's here right now. Like that's
Well, I have clone troopers protecting my back, so I'm good.
it's the dude does come out of nowhere, but
Yes.
always makes that look so great. We obviously knew the Vision would become involved, which they quickly began doing their Shield impersonation
Hmm.
by putting Roman through a table. The Usos for the save, even though Roman said, "Hey guys, don't come out
Right.
there." They came out there, which of course kind of gives you some idea of where we're going to be going, right? And then, sure enough,
Hmm.
um, poor main event Jay accidentally spears his cousin.
And again, this is one of those bloodline adjacent, even though it's not a bloodline storyline, it still is a bloodline storyline because at the end of it, Bronson gets put over because of a miscommunication between, the tribal chief and his cousin. And now we have more bloodline storyline bubbling up after the match, with the dialogue between the three of them. And so, yeah,
Oh, the dial.
li-
Yeah,
little
yeah. We
sprinkles there.
Yeah, we found out at the end of the match that I mean, basically the Bloodline sat around and made Christmas plans at the end of the match.
Hmm.
Roman don't want to see you until Christmas, so
Yeah.
I think that's a storyline way of saying we're not seeing Roman until probably after Thanksgiving and Survivor
Yep.
Series. Or, yeah, he's off doing Roman things, which is now his prerogative as our tribal chief who's trying to start a Hollywood career. But I think that's a way to
Yep.
get him off TV for a while. I could
Yes.
be wrong.
Yeah, he's pretty much a part timer now anyway. So, I mean,
It has to be end up with, I guess, a Roman Jay confrontation as a result of this. Jay's kind of
hmm
been a little obstinate with his cousin here lately anyway, so I do think we're getting more bloodline adjacent drama, just rehashed from a few years back. But hey, I don't hate it, especially as you said,
right.
Roman is a part timer. This is a good way to spend his time and a good way to keep Jay involved, since his star fell quite a bit from where he came from Royal Rumble through his March to Mania and
Hmm.
his run with the title. This gives him a high profile something to do as well.
Yes.
I thought this was a match that, considering the participants probably met expectations and was very entertaining,
Absolutely. Hmm.
and did a lot to put Bronson over.
Yes, it totally did. I expected both Bronson and other Australians to lose, but
Didn't happen. At least this first one. We're not get ahead of
yeah,
ourselves, I suppose.
don't
But
want no spoilers out there. But this what do they call him now? Ozilla. I like that, the Ozilla.
Ozilla, the tribal thief. I mean, the man, the
Yes,
thick boy, like the man has a lot of nicknames.
he does. I'm digging it.
Moving on, we have our first Crown Jewel Championship match, with the whole giant belt being presented beforehand.
That
And
belt,
yeah, I know,
ridiculous.
right? Uh, Stephanie Vaquer, Doug, is it me, Frozen, or you? One of us is Frozen. I'm going to presume it is Doug, and that I can be heard. So I will keep on until Doug comes back. But we got Stephanie Vaquer versus Tiffany Stratton again for the Crown Jewel Championship. I say Crown Jewel Championship. I was confused at first, not by the concept of the Crown Jewel Championship, but thinking that, wait a minute, this can't be Crown Jewel because these women are in standard wrestling gear. And then it was like, oh, yeah, this is what happens when you have females wrestling outside of where you normally host Crown Jewel. They can have their standard gear, which looked great. I loved the feeling out chain wrestling that we saw to start. I thought that was a good way to settle in for what I thought for what I thought was going to be a longer contest than what it was. I'm not sure, though, that the finish that kind of came out of nowhere was meant to surprise folks, or just literally was from out of nowhere. But there was the finish where Stephanie gets picks up the victory here over Tiffany Stratton, and it was good while it lasted. But maybe I kind of thought it would go a little longer. But that's not the way that it went down on this night. I know that the show ended up going an hour and a half. So maybe they were afraid that, 3 hours and 30 minutes, but maybe they were afraid that they needed to try to cut something, and the women's match became the victim of that. However it was decided, it definitely was not a bad match. Two very talented women, and just not as long as maybe you would have hoped it to be. And that means Stephanie Vaquer is your your second WWE Crown Jewel champion. They did make a big deal about the fact that it was the first loss that Tiffany had experienced this season, this year of 2025. So in that regard, it shows what the company thinks of Stephanie, that they would put her over, considering how well Tiffany had been protected up to this point. So there you have it. I got word that Doug is his internet's down. I'll let him know that we're still on here. Live TV, what are you going to do? But yeah, Doug will make his way back as he can. But until then, here he comes back.
What is happening? Some technical difficulties there.
I explained to the folks that you'd dropped internet, but we soldiered on, Doug. The only thing you missed was us talking about the Stephanie Vaquer, Tiffany Stratton match. And my review of that, I'll get your take since I hadn't yet moved on, is that it was good while it lasted, but was a little shorter than we would have expected, or at least I would have expected. And I didn't like the ending because it kind of came out of nowhere in a way that wasn't a good come out of nowhere, just it's over with already.
See, this
That's
is
my
what I
thoughts.
was. This is what I was talking about earlier. It seemed a little clumsy for both ladies in areas. It almost seemed like an actual fight, not the choreographed wrestling match I expected these girls to deliver. It seemed like some things were clumsy. The chemistry just wasn't there with these two. I don't know. I can't recall if these folks have met before, but I don't know. Some of my favorite female wrestlers, right there, but something
Yeah,
just was off about this entire match, and it did seem to not necessarily abruptly, but definitely from out of nowhere end.
I do love that corkscrew splash of Stephanie's. That is such a cool
Hmm.
looking finishing maneuver. And as I was telling the folks at home, it definitely put Stephanie over as far as like what the company thinks of her. The
Yes.
announcers did a good job of making sure that we knew that this is the first pinfall loss that Tiffany Stratton has taken this year. And that's another way of saying that. And that's why Stephanie is a really big
Hmm.
deal, and you should see
Yeah.
her as a big deal. I did like that part of it. Which gets us to our next match, Doug, the one that I really want to dig into here, because last week we had questioned whether or not this would open, maybe, or if this was your
Hmm.
actual main event that would close. It was neither. They stuck it right in the middle,
Right
which
in the
was
middle. Yeah.
kind of an interesting timing for it. But John Cena versus AJ Styles. From the very first, that pre-match package that showed the history between these two men, the face of WWE versus the face of TNA, and then when the whole beat up John Cena era, and just everything about this just felt special from the moment they started that video package to the introductions to just everything that happened bell to bell. I loved this so much. Just so much.
Yes. So much,
Um,
so greatness throughout this, from like you said, from bell to bell. So much awesomeness, so much. It's like they were doing the greatest hits. They're like, a
yeah,
legendary band going out on tour and doing the greatest hits. Because not only did they pull out their greatest hits,
yeah,
they were
that's
doing
it.
covers all night long, and I loved it.
We often talk about them doing the greatest hits. You expect that they're going to do callbacks to their past matches. Somebody's going to steal, like, I'm going to take your move and you're going to take my move. We thought that kind of stuff may occur. But as you said, it was covers night as well, as they paid tribute
Hmm.
really just to their greatest opponents. I guess maybe rewinding all the way to the beginning, they acknowledged off the bat what we reported last week, and that is they are now publicly on WWE television confirming that
Hmm.
AJ Styles is on his way out too. So,
Hmm.
unlike us knowing it was John Cena's farewell tour, but knowing that AJ has said in interviews that he's going to call it quits at some point in time, they're now also buying into, let's let the fans in on the fact that, yeah, both these guys are
Yep.
on their way out. And the crowd knew it, and the crowd respond. I thought it'd be more of a let's go Cena because you're leaving kind of crowd. But there was TNA chants, there was AJ Styles chants, like they just poured love on both of these men from the start, and they fed into that and performed at a level way, um, you know, way
Yes.
above what their age said they should probably be able to do at this point in time.
Absolutely. You really thought the audience, because there was just a sea of yellow, because you had the yellow Cena shirts there for Perth. You just expected AJ to be the heel, but
Yeah.
it was just two dudes who are really good at their jobs, going out there and delivering.
Structurally, it reminded me a little bit of what Edge and Randy Orton did back during the
Yeah.
pandemic when they had the greatest wrestling match ever, which was dumb because they had to build
Uh-huh.
it, let that in advance. But what they went out and delivered was a love letter to the sport of pro wrestling. These guys kind of did something similar in, we're just going to give you choke slams. We're going to give you sweet chin music. We're going to give you the walls
Hmm.
of Jericho. They just were taking the Randy Orton RKO and the hanging
The
DDT,
punt.
the punt. I don't know that anything got quite the pop that John Cena got when he made his Bray Wyatt tribute. The Fireflies came
Yes.
out afterwards. I'm sitting here
Yes.
getting all the feels, and that Fight Forever chant was, I was practically chanting here by myself, like hoping that they would fight forever. I'm like, I don't want this to end.
Yes.
This is so good.
It was weird because at one point I'm like, okay, what is left? And then Michael Cole said, I think it was Michael Cole who says, okay, well, what moves, what is left?
What moves are there left? Yeah, all the
Right.
moves are gone. I
Yeah.
didn't look at the timing of it because it did seem like it went a
Oh,
while, but it certainly didn't
I
overstay its
think,
welcome.
let me check my notes. I think it went 27 minutes. I think uh I had that in my notes about the timing of it. But yeah, it was
These are old
definitely
men. These are old men that went a half
right.
hour, right?
Yeah,
Um,
basically. Let's see. Yeah, AJ Styles, 27-minute classic. Yep.
let's talk about, though, the fact that AJ Styles does not look or act or wrestle his age. Not that Cena
Mm-mm.
didn't hold his own in this, but that Styles clash, when they show it in slow motion, and John Cena, you see that it looks so good in slow motion. And then, of course, the 450
Mhm.
splash is like, who can still do those sorts of things but AJ Styles? It's cool he's going out on his own terms while he can do those
Mhm.
things instead of like, here's a facsimile of the things I used to be able to do. Um,
Yes.
but who would have thought it would take a tombstone into an F5
I
uh,
know.
or an FU rather to
Attitude adjustment. Yeah, if you.
end things, man. Just I don't know what a match. John Cena, as we predicted, did go out on top, but we all won in this one. I love the
Yeah.
acknowledgement from the crowd, and then John Cena of Styles, and then Styles of Cena. And in that moment when they're both sitting there with their arms in the air after having what defied time, really,
Uh-huh.
It just really, it kind of just dawns on you like, oh yeah, we're not going to see these guys for very much longer. Like this is really, you really are getting a chance to say goodbye. And then you see it at that high level and you realize why
Hmm.
the names are at the top of the marquee and why it's a big deal that 20 some years into it that these two are hanging it up. But man, what a way to go out.
What a way.
And then, Doug, comes the unenviable task of something having to follow this when you
Right.
put it on in the middle of the show. Um, I guess if you're going to put something on, it probably does make sense for after a match that no one could follow. You mitigate the popcorn match vibe by at least giving the home country pop that Rhea Ripley's guaranteed to get. So I understand that part of why they put this on next.
Yes.
Um, Rhea Ripley and her longtime enemy, now friends, Io Sky, taking on the Kabuki Warriors.
Yeah.
Heroes welcome naturally for Rhea. They
Hmm.
teased out Rhea's entry as well into the match, which I also thought was probably good to help keep the fans in it. To their credit, the
Hmm.
fans did not check out. They got quieter, but they didn't check out.
Yes.
And the fact that there was Io doing her best Ricky Morton from back in the day of the extended beatdown,
Yes.
waiting for
Yes.
the hot
It's
tag.
great.
It was great.
Yeah, they
And then Rhea,
get build and build and build to that.
that's old school. That is exactly how
Very.
tag team wrestling used to be done. And it was a smart move to do here so that people anticipated the building tension for Rhea to finally enter. And when she did, she cleaned house, of course. I think the ref, though, Doug, may also have still been thinking back about how great the AJ Styles Cena match was because she didn't appear to be like present and caring that this
Hmm.
became a tornado tag. Like everyone's in the ring.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a
It's like, what
problem,
are the
WWE.
rules? What
What are the
are the
rules?
rules? Are we doing AEW style? Like, what's going on here?
And I don't want to overlook for as great as Rhea Ripley is, and I think male or female, she is absolutely one of the biggest stars in the business. But I think it might be easy just to sometimes take Io Sky for granted, just that she may
Yes.
be one of the. You see, on again, I'm going back to the slow motion. The production team was on point all night or morning, I guess, as it were. But they
Right.
did a
Yeah.
lot of slow motion replays in this match that just showed how incredibly crisp everything that Io Sky does. You know, it looks great. Even when slowed down, it
Hmm.
looks stiff. It looks tight. Just so good stuff. It's simple. This was a very simple story that they told here. Maybe a bit of fan service and Rhea and Io going over, as you noted earlier. All the Australians won, which is not the
Right.
way they typically do things.
No, it's
But
wrong. Like they've never
um,
watched professional wrestling before. You lose in your
come
hometown. Come
on,
on.
completely inoffensive match that doesn't do anything to hurt the Kabuki Warriors. They made a point to say that is poor Carrie Sane, who's just the weak link because she's just
Hmm.
terrified of Asuka. So this storyline, which is one of the better storylines that WWE is telling right now, will continue. This match didn't really solve
Hmm.
anything, but it was okay. It was not great. It was not you know anything special, but it was good and it was entertaining.
Yes, absolutely. Again, a completely inoffensive match. I- more of my favorite female performers
Yeah.
in the ring.
And as I mentioned while you were gone, this was another way of me being confused about this being Crown Jewel because all the women were in normal gear. I'm like, am I
Yes.
sure I'm watching Crown Jewel? That one's really for your benefit. I've repeated
Oh,
then. Again, and
oh.
special kudos. Just a quick shout as I see you, fellow Springsteen fan Michael Cole, for sneaking in the "blind faith in your leaders will get you killed" line there at the end. I'm like, I know what he's doing there, but of course, I would love that. Which leads us to our main event,
Oh,
and that is the men's
man.
Crown Jewel Championship. That being Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, champion versus champion. Two of the most singable entrance songs in the business, and the crowd did oblige
Yes.
in
If
both
you want to get
instances.
Seth Seth over as like a despicable heel, gotta change up the song. It's just too over. Just like Seth.
As soon as they got rid of Jim Johnson doing all the music, there's so much generic music now. Surely they can give him something that no one would recognize and that would stop all the
Right?
fans from wanting to sing along. But yeah, it's not exactly a heel entrance when the fans love it so much and then instantly go to
Hmm.
booing him. I did think there was an interesting line close to the start from Cole about Rhodes wanting to lead WWE in the way that John Cena had led WWE, and that
Hmm.
Rhodes wants to lead WWE for the next 2 decades. And I'm like, for the next 2 decades, Cody Rhodes is 41 years old. Like Michael
QB1 is
Cole,
going to 60, Kevin.
how long is Cody planning on wrestling? Apparently, until at least into his 60s, he's going to be the face that
Yeah.
runs the place, not to steal AJ's line. But anyway, methodical start to this one, but you could just tell that was because they were going to be building some tension to,
Oh.
start going into second gear and then, take it up even a notch from that. And they sure did. They just built this one up more and more as it went along. I did like the distraction of the heel, like just not being able to handle the fact the crowd was on him, blaming the announce team for what happened on SmackDown, and just goes
Hmm.
after Michael Cole and Wade Barrett, which I just thought was such a wonderful heel move that you don't see people do enough of. Is that this is your
Yes.
fault? What's happening here? And I just thought that was really good move by Seth.
Yeah, I mean, Seth is an excellent heel, theme song aside there. But, it's I just lost my train of thought about this match. This match, from top to bottom, I do like how it was teased out earlier in the night that, no interference. We're letting Seth do this on his own, and which to me is Paul Heyman telegraphing, "Yeah, okay, yeah, we're going to get involved somehow." All the wrestling rules just went out the window, on this pay-per-view,
It's
premium
Perth,
live
man. It's
event.
down under, so things like
The toilets
yeah,
go backwards.
everything goes the opposite way. The distraction that Seth had when he decided to go after the announce team is kind of what started to turn the tide from being a sort of an even Steven match up to that point. Then after that, you start getting the counters and they go into that other gear that they were waiting for. The
Oh
missed
man.
Cody Cutter, the missed Cody Cutter out of the corner where he just flails and just
Mhm.
goes back on his back.
Oh,
Yeah, and then Seth immediately capitalizes with a pedigree into a
mhm.
stomp. That was a very big, a believable near finish. It was an interesting choice at the time. I thought when they pulled out the Rolex watch, because I'm like, wait a minute, Seth's
Mhm.
a heel. Why would he second guess whether or not he should or shouldn't cheat? Well, we
Yeah.
learned pretty shortly after why there was it was just to introduce it to us at first. He did not use it
Mhm.
at first. Obviously, he will later on. But come on, man, I got to call out that coast to coast headbutt. Have you ever seen a coast to coast headbutt before?
No, and I'm really wondering, is that what Seth meant to do? And then, or did he get up there and then just second guess himself and think, I'm just going to stretch out and do a coast to coast headbutt. I can get to Cody if I do that. I don't know. I mean, he's an incredible athlete, but he has had some knee problems. So maybe he wasn't sure he could make it any other way. I don't know what that was supposed to be, if it was intentionally that to begin with, or if he second guessed and called an audible. But I mean, it looked really cool.
It looked really cool. It looked like head to head contact because Cody was
Mhm.
coming up a little bit at the time. And it was something that I had never seen. Everyone does the coast to coast. They stretch out
Mhm.
and hit with their legs because, that's going to get there first. So for him to get his full upper body that far, like you said, that's just quite a show of athleticism. The crossroads from the top rope also looked like
Oh my,
$1 million.
that avalanche crossroads.
Yeah.
I mean,
These two left it
wow.
all out there. Again, they'd introduced it earlier, the conflict over using the watch that Cody had given Seth to factor into the finish. It did factor into the finish. It's what cost Cody the match. The announcers did a good job, though, of also covering for Cody as well by stressing this was the first time that Seth was actually able to beat Cody.
Hmm.
And then, of course, he did so with the help of a foreign object. So it did protect Cody. You and I, this was the one match we couldn't figure out how to predict last week because it
Yeah.
just felt like neither of these guys should lose. This is how you get a good match in your main event where you do have a winner. You don't give a cheap ending of a
Hmm.
DQ or a count out or something, but you still protect a guy in a way that Cody has a lot of outs for losing this one.
Cody has a lot of outs, and that's yeah, maybe I'm just not been that perceptive, but I don't know that that watch has played a big deal in anything until that last night because it's kind of like Chekhov's gun. You see, early on, like Seth taking it off, and I'm like, why is he wearing? Why is the watch such a big deal tonight? And then he goes back to it later, and they start to elaborate, and I'm like, oh, okay, that
That's
it is
why.
Chekhov's gun.
Yep.
You show it in the first act to use it in the third act, so there it is.
Yep. And the way they did it, it did work. It did tell a good story. And then, of course, the two men involved put on a great match to end what was a great pay per view in my mind.
Yeah. It really was a much better crown jewel. I thought it was in Perth. I so associate it with Saudi Arabia, but hey, it works better in Perth for me.
Let's move it around then. Let's just keep it
Yeah,
an
let's move it
international.
around.
Yeah. And with that,
Big finish time.
we're going to move around on to our 1, 2, 3 big finish. The number one in that 1, 2, 3 is botch of the week, Doug. And I, if you don't mind, I'm just going to say for me, the botch is just the idea of the crown jewel champion. I am fine if you want to have an annual champion versus champion. Let's see who's the best. We're going to do it once a year to see who's the best champion. Maybe even give them a trophy or just give them something. But when you
Hmm.
have a belt and you call it a championship, that's something that gets defended, and it's not something that you win in a tournament kind of format.
Hmm.
It's confusing to me. I don't like it. I don't like the giant belt, and they get a ring too, which is also confusing. It's here's the ring, here's your belt, here's the cup, here's a certificate. Here, I mean, what are we doing
Here's
here?
your giant, comedically large check.
Yeah, just give them one thing. I think a trophy. Think like the Opera Cup, like MLW does, or the old King of the Ring. Like here's something that you are that you've won this one tournament a year. But if you call it a championship, it is a championship that then you go on and defend. It's funny because when they gave it to Stephanie and Triple H comes out and they make the big presentation, Cole said something about like, here's something that we're going to be seeing a lot of. And I'm like, oh, no, we won't. No, we won't.
No,
We will
that's
not.
going back to the WWE place in Riyadh, and that's where
Yeah,
it'll stay until next
until
year.
next year. Yeah, so I just don't like the way they set it up. And again, the pay per view was great, but the whole idea of a crown jewel championship, it's not a championship. That bugs me.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to pivot because I didn't have because I do like to keep them thematic when we do the PLEs, and there was nothing really offensive or anything really botchy about, but I was going to call out the whole just poor chemistry between Stratton and Stephanie Vacura, and I always say her last name wrong, but
It's all right.
because it just
Wade
seemed
Barrett does too.
clumsy and just something was off. But that doesn't deserve a botch. But I have to agree with you. I'm pivoting from my old man rant about two gals who went out there and did what they do. They were just having an off night. I'm pivoting that to the whole concept, just like you, because I think it's silly. And it was. I was joking about the comedically large check. They have comedically large belts. I mean, that belt was as big as Stephanie Vancouver. Yeah.
And last year, the first women's crown jewel champion was Liv Morgan, who could not, if you
Hmm.
remember, could not even get it buckled around her because it was so comically large. I
Yes.
know they're trying to show that, okay, this is something different and special, so we're going to make a special belt. But it's another reason why you should just go with the ring. I mean, AEW has a ring for their once a year thing, so
Hmm.
this is your once a year thing. I am fine for the concept, just it's not a championship. No
It's
belts
and
unless
it's
you're a champion.
Yeah, and it's just such an over the top decorated just
Yeah,
piece of ridiculousness.
yeah, it's overdone.
Yeah.
Um, how about your performance of the week?
So let me go with performer of the week, and I'm calling out the Perth crowd because they just brought it like so many of these other like out of country crowds do. Not just so many. I want to say every time we go out of the country, the crowd just so delivers so much. This Perth crowd was on it. I don't think I've ever seen a crowd greater than the Puerto Rico crowd, but Perth was up
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, absolutely. The international crowds in general, I know Puerto Rico is a territory, but still, as soon as we leave our
Right.
shores, we go to Puerto Rico, we go to France, we go to
Hmm.
Australia. Those crowds do bring it, and I cannot disagree with you on that for your performance. I'm going a little off script of the pay per view to give my performance of the week to the NXT brand itself. And that is
Nah.
because I did, as I mentioned up top, if you didn't get to join us up top, I did manage to catch what was the first real house show circuit that NXT has run outside of Florida in like 4 or 5 years. I think since maybe even right before the pandemic. And when I first got tickets to the show in Columbus, I thought it must be something on CW on that Tuesday night, and they're moving the show to Thursday because it's funny. No one does house shows anymore. So I don't even think about house shows being a
Right.
thing. AEW doesn't do them. WWE kind of got rid of them. And so I thought it'd be on TV, and I was going to be in Columbus anyway. I snatched up a front row ticket. And I'm like, this is going to be great. And then it's like, oh, wait a minute. This is going to be a house show. This was not like your standard, like what we think in the old days of everyone playing it safe. Obviously, JC Jane didn't play it safe. She may have been seriously injured, but
Hmm.
you talk about a brand that just is full of young and hungry talent being led by HBK. It really has become one of my favorite shows of the week just because it's the WWE style production. It has a bit of the black and gold brand of hungry kids that are going all out trying to impress the upper brass. It's about the only spot now where you see true Forbidden Door. Like, they got a tournament going on where
Hmm.
there's one member of the main event roster, there's a member of NXT, there's someone from AAA, and there's someone from TNA in every one of the matches, like in the brackets that they're doing. And who else can do that except the way that NXT is positioned, because
Hmm.
they've become the partner for where you highlight the AAA talent. They've become the
Right.
partner for all the TNA crossover stuff. So no one gets overexposed, and they're always cycling through so much. I mean, just look at the people we talked about that just months ago, whether it's Tiffany Stratton or Stephanie. I mean, the women's division, especially Roxanne Perez. You look at the main roster, and it's full of nothing but Julia, like men and women, especially on the
Hmm.
women's side, just coming from NXT like crazy. Kalani Jordan was on the show I saw on Thursday night. The main event, Johnny and Mrs. Wrestling and Tommaso decided to grace us with their presence too. The main event was you had the young young OG Javon Evans in a fatal 4-way going for the title against the former champion Obafemi. Josh Briggs, who Devon had just had the great match against on the last PLE, and then the incredibly talented NXT champion and Ricky Saints, who's obviously also going to be a huge star. And just it was top to bottom just as good a show as you're going to see, and it wasn't on TV. It was just hungry talent. And at the end, I got to meet Ricky. I got to meet Javon. They
That's
just
cool.
folks hung out and saw Ruka, and like just the future of wrestling is on display in NXT right now. It is kind of reminding me of the old days when NXT was my favorite show of the week. It's becoming that
Hmm.
again, and I could not say more or higher things for the experience on not just Thursday, but just the weekly broadcast, the job that the Heartbreak Kid's doing. Even though Ethan Page had a lot of nasty things to say about him on Thursday night, which was also just great. I half expected that
Oh,
HBK
that's
was going to
great.
be there, but unfortunately that wasn't the case. But that is my performance of the week. I'm giving it to the entire brand, but
Nice.
Shawn Michaels, to you especially, because I know you're the one, leading the way there, and you're doing a great job of it.
Nice.
Doug, there's a lot of good choices for match of the week. So
There's a
match of
lot.
the
You
week.
know what? Oh man, you know what? I've got to go with what has to be my favorite match of Perth, and that's Cena Styles because their greatest hits, it was just so entertaining. These guys, especially AJ, I've been an AJ fan since, I mean, AJ's a TNA original. And, back in the day when TNA was the only viable alternative to WWE, we were right there, man. We remember the Fortune
Yeah,
4, yeah, right? Uh,
yeah,
they AJ Cena. I've never been the biggest Cena fan, but I've become a fan on this tour, his
yeah.
retirement tour, and the work he does on Peacemaker. I think I made clear last week is just really amazing. Finale was
No,
amazing
no,
too.
no, no, no
No,
spoilers.
no
Okay.
spoilers, no spoilers. I know you hate spoilers, no spoilers, but
Yeah,
yeah,
Cena's.
AJ.
I mean, Cena is
Unbelievable.
energized right now. I think he's just really knowing whatever he has left in the tank. It really feels like he's trying to give it. He is not coasting through this. He's not coming in and
No.
collecting a payday the way some of the returning wrestlers do. I mean, the marks on the man's face, like he looked like he'd been through a war at the end of this match. And
Hmm.
I'm with you. I mean, this is my match. How could it be anything else? Come on,
Right,
folks.
right.
There's some good stuff out there, but this match was incredible. And when I think, yes, AJ Styles TNA original, believe it or not, though, the first time I saw AJ Styles, this is how long I've been a fan. It was the dying days of WCW. He was on within the last like 2-3 episodes of the show. I think it was maybe Thunder on Thursday, or if they still had something on Saturday, it was one of the B shows. And it was him and Amazing Red in a tag team match. And they both are just, flipping and
Yeah.
flopping and flying. And here, the dying days of WCW, and the dude is still doing 450 splashes 25 years later on
Mhm.
our screens last night. Absolutely unbelievable. Was it a 5-star compared to some of their classic matches from 2016 to 17? Maybe not as technically, but come on. It
Yeah.
was, you said it, entertaining. This was a love letter to professional wrestling. This was the
It
greatest
really
hits. This
was.
is,
Yeah.
if you like wrestling, you're going to like this. And if you don't like this, you probably don't like wrestling. And that's kind of the way I feel about it. This was the
That's
most
great. That is so
entertaining
great. Yeah.
match of the week and a must see for any wrestling fan.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And with that, you definitely need to go see that match. Thank you for
Yeah.
seeing us and watching us this week on the Two Bros Wrestling Show. We do know that there's a PLE next weekend. Next Saturday is Wrestle Dream. And
Mhm.
so we didn't preview it, but we're going to be here to talk
We'll
about all
review it.
of it. We'll review it for you next week. And then after that, our spooky Halloween special.
Ooh, spooky.
Until then.
Go watch some wrestling. Thanks for watching, everybody. Good night.